Hello, and in light of the fact that we're having to make some adjustments for this semester, I just want to go ahead and take you on the site survey that we would have done had we been able to meet for class on campus. So, first of all, hope you all are doing well. I know we've done the site survey or kind of stumbled through one over at the studio because we were trying to, or the theater, as we were trying to, get ready for the play production. So I want to take you through a little bit more methodical site survey as we, looking at how we might shoot a basketball or a volleyball game here at the gym. So I've already posted a copy of this site survey sheet. This is not a form that you would use. This is just kind of a model to help you get started. Get rid of all the instructions that I've written on there if you ever decide to make your own. But let's take a little walk, and I want you to kind of understand some of the things we have to look out for as we're planning for a video production in an off-site location. First thing you need to do is you need to be able to take notes. That's what this sheet is right here. And on this sheet, I have it listed by program title, location, dates, setup time, the location, load-in placement, suitable production needs, etc. These are all the kind of things you need to take into consideration as you're getting ready for a location production. Hello! You also got to look out for obnoxious people who are going to interrupt your shoot. But anyway, yeah, one of my colleagues. I won't tell you who it is. But on your notes, you need to make sure that you're labeling everything correctly. The reason being is if you're in a production house, you're going to have a lot of pieces of paper floating around. And even if you're doing work independently, you're not a big scale operation, still keeping your information organized, categorized, homogenized, whatever, keeping it all in an organized fashion will make it easier for you to do the work that you need to do when you're sitting down to do your planning. That's why at the very beginning I have the program title. What is this connected to? What is this going to be part of? The location, production dates. This is critical because it's from these production dates that you can build your timeline. Your timeline is of utmost importance, and I'll discuss that later in another video. Your production timeline, you need to know when do we have to be absolutely ready for this thing to begin. Then back up your time on when you want to have everything done, etc. Again, I'll describe this more in another video. So, production date, setup, location. You got to look over its accessibility. How easily can we get to the facility? Well, rather than just talking about it, why don't I show you some of these considerations? As we're discussing accessibility, we need to think of how easily can we get cables from here to here. Now, I know from experience that this is where we're going to go in through this door so that we can get our cables run if we were setting up with an outside truck. A few years ago, we actually did that. We set up a production truck right here for Channel 40 as we did the production. The cables ran up this staircase, and then we used what we call yellow jackets, gators, whatever. Basically, they're just the covers that cables run through, and that provides a ramp, let's say, for people who are coming up and down this staircase so that they wouldn't hurt themselves. And then we use the cables and ran them through this door. That made it for an easy run getting to, although we pretty well closed this door off for general public access. If you're doing a live broadcast and you need to use a satellite hookup, that will mean you need to have access to the southern sky. This is critical. All the satellites that are used for communications type operations, the uplinks and downlinks that we use in our industry, they live along the equator. So we have to have access to the southern sky in order to be able to shoot a signal. In this case, it works well for us. But if we had a big building right here that overshadowed, or a big mountain that blocked the way, or trees or something like that, the satellite dish would have to raise up pretty high, or we might even have to, if there's a building, move the truck to another location, the sat truck, in order to make that southern sky exposure. So You need to be aware of the access to the southern sky if you're going to be doing an uplink for a satellite broadcast. Now this is the inside of that access door. Right here, we would need a yellow jacket to run across. That's, again, those are those ramps that we could run across here in order to make a safe carrying of cables to the area where we're going to shoot. Now, a nice feature of this house is the platform that is right up there. This platform allows us to get a good high gain and high tight or high hero angle on the basketball court. And we also have a good space right here for the handhelds if we were shooting a basketball game. Getting back to that question of safety, there is no space there. In fact, the referees for the game have told us nobody can go back behind this area. We instead are confined to this area right here. Why? Well, let's walk with me, people. If I go here and I'm running a camera and I'm able to get my great shots of the free throw shooter from right here, what happens if somebody comes through the court, comes off the court into the out of bounds? They slam me up against the back wall. That would be unsafe. So the officials at the game have final word on where you can stay. So we'll stay with the handhelds over here on the edge. Now, doesn't it sound lovely up here? This is one of the things you need to pay attention to when you're on location. What are the sounds that are going to be around that could possibly interfere with your announcers, with your ability to hear what's going on? Fortunately, this air conditioner isn't this loud normally during a game. Maybe it's because you can't hear it because the crowds are so loud. And with the close microphones, we generally tend to get a clear sound off of our announcers. You just can kind of count on, the announcers having the microphones up close, therefore overriding a lot of the extraneous sound, the ambient sound. But that's not always the case. If you're shooting, let's say, in a theater, well, the ambient noise can sometimes be picked up by the microphones. I remember when we shot the play Viable, we had microphones, and they were picking up me directing from the upper level in the control room. So you've got to be aware of ambient sound and what could be picked up your microphones. That will affect where you place your microphones. The next time we had a production there, I moved the microphones up on the stage. I tapped into the microphones that were on the stage from the house in order to get that clear sound, because the distant microphones were picking up air conditioner noise and other extraneous sound that interfered. So be aware of the sound of the location where you're going to shoot. One of the considerations on the handout, the chart that I've showed you, is the question of space. You need to make sure that as you're planning for where your cameras are going to go, that there's adequate space for the cameras. Now right here, when we're setting up in here, this is where we put our control room. And we may put a camera over there and then a camera right here. So we have our two spaces. Again, this camera position, control, audio. This would be the camera position, and then here's where audio would be. This is not a bad setup, but you would like as much space as you can get. Now, when we're shooting in some houses, like say at the football stadium, we have to get through a much wider. You see right here, we're just going from one end of the court to the other. But at a football field, we got 100 yards of this and then some beyond. And when you're shooting around a window, sometimes that window frame can get in the way and the two cameras wind up switching off on their rolls. So maybe this camera can't get the end zone, let's say, the camera to the right,
but the camera to the left can shoot. This camera can get the end zone, but this camera cannot. So you'll trade back and forth in their camera assignments. So all these kind of considerations have to be kept in mind as you're setting up and planning out how you're going to do your shoot. An important consideration in your shoot is power, or its accessibility. Up here we have an outlet, 2 outlets. Just remember, we've got a lot of people who can be living off that. So for this, you need to make sure you make an accurate calculation of how much power you are going to need. In a small operation where you have maybe a computer, a mixer, power for a couple of cameras, and a clearcom system, this is not bad. The usual 15 amps you get out of a system like this should be adequate. But when you're setting up for a large truck, such as in an outside location, in those cases you're going to need a lot more power. We used to require 100 amps of power just to drive the truck, and we had to have it in 3-phase 220 power. You need to know what is needed by the production rig that you're going to set up. This right here ain't gonna cut it if you're trying to run 100 amps. So you may need a generator, or you may need to find the 3-phase power. So let's go see if we can find a 3-phase power hookup. I found it. Here's the breaker box. The only thing is, it is so far away from where we're going to be setting up the truck, that could be problematic, because the attenuation or the power loss over that long of a piece of cable is going to be tremendous. So in this case, instead of trying to run 3-phase cam lock cables from here out to the other side of the building, let's just go ahead and arrange for a generator, or a Jenny as it's sometimes called. Make sure it can handle the 100 amps plus, because you'll always want some headroom. And that can be set up right close to the production truck, so it's out of the way but readily accessible. This is also a way to think about the strike. Whenever you're setting up the install, you're installing thinking about the strike so that it can go as efficiently as possible. Don't make work harder to be harder than it has to be. Work for making it easy for you to get out at the end.
Whenever you're planning on your site, you also need to think in terms of what is the background of where your talent's going to be. Now, is the background going to be busy? Are there going to be people walking around and crossing behind, or possibly even in front? So you need to look at the traffic patterns around where you're planning on setting up your talent. In a big facility, you may have a lot of leeway, and there may be spaces dedicated to the talent. But in a smaller venue, it's usually, we're making it up as we go along, so the more you can do in the pre-planning and arrange for ahead of time, request that particular press box, that particular space for the event, the better. If you're shooting a play or something like that, reserve the space for your production and reserve the space for your talent if you have some, although in the theater, your talent is the main thing. So another thing to take in consideration is about your background is, are there any open windows? You see, if we're in a situation like this where I want to see through the window, problem with seeing my face, which may be a blessing to some of you. But anyway, in this situation, we would have to put lights up here and here to illuminate my face, so that, and let me see if it'll work. No, it's not. It's too much even for my phone to adjust. So you're going to get silhouettes unless you put lighting to really make the foreground hot and to override the brightness of the background.
And lighting just doesn't relate to the background of your talent or your announcers. Lighting also relates to the playing area itself. Now, fortunately here, we have pretty even lighting. This is newer lighting that has been installed, so the color temperature is pretty uniform. I have shot in some venues where some of the lights are pinkish, some of them are greenish, and it really makes for some bad color changes when you're going across the court. Now, sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. You just need to be aware that your color balances are going to go a little bit haywire. In a full-size truck, you have the camera control units and the other equipment to adjust for it. But in a smaller scale production setup, you may not have that luxury, so you may have to live with some color shifts throughout the progress of the game or the event.
This form has another important consideration, and that is the contact information. Try to, if you're setting up to go shoot at an event or for a sporting or for an entertainment event, make sure you get a contact. You need a contact for the facility. This is a person with whom you would plan on when you're going to be there, whenever you need, when you might need to come out for the site survey. This should be one of the first names you get as you're planning for an event. The name, the phone number, email, so you can build up the email is important so you can do your communication and have a paper trail. It's easy to say something on the phone and then forget it. So as much as you can do with email, then you can go back and review, oh yeah, he did say or she did say meet at 6:30, not 6 o'clock. You want to be on time or early. You do not want to be late for these meetings. Who's in charge of letting you into or onto the location? Who will open the place up for you? Is there anyone in charge of the location, such as a caretaker or a custodian? Some of these folks take pride in ownership of their facilities. They want to make sure you're going to treat it right. Treat these people with respect. You should treat everybody you work with respect. But you know especially they're not working for you. They're doing you a favor. Okay? If you keep that mindset, they don't owe you what you need for the shoot. They're there to guard the house, the venue. So work with them to make sure everybody works smoothly. The more information you can give them, the better. Be accurate information. Please do not try to hide information. If you're going to be using tape on floors, make sure you ask them. You don't want to rip a hole in a wall because it just so happens the paint or the wallpaper is old. And when you put that tape up to maybe secure, let's say you're masking a window, and then you rip the wallpaper, not good. So you need to make sure you have good communication where you try to anticipate and work through problems with the contact people. Also, if you're the producer in a shoot, make sure you have not just the facility contact, you need to have your information contact. Who's in charge of the event? That's where you get the information about the event flow. What's going to happen next. If you can get a script that you can follow, or you can get a script ahead of time, especially where you can plot out where you're going to be pulling your video from, what cameras you're going to use, how you're going to use them. Everything you can do in pre-production saves you headaches for when you get into the actual production. The site survey is an important part of your pre-production for an event. Through your site survey, you can find out what additional equipment you may need, or you may find out what equipment you don't need to bring with you. If you are anticipating long cable runs and then you don't have them, that's a plus to you. Still bring some backup, but it'll help you be able to realistically plan out your install time. If you know you have ready access to a generator, or if you have ready access to the tie-in for power, for shore power, fantastic. Some venues are pre-wired, so where you park your truck or your trailer outside, connect into their facility, and their facility runs all the cable runs to the camera positions. It's the way it is at a number of larger venues. They pull the trucks up in there, make the connection from the trailers to the I/O panel, input-output panel, and the cables run all the way up into the house. That's great. Saves a lot of work, saves a lot of time. Sometimes you don't have that luxury. You need to know ahead of time what's available from the house, what's available, what space is available, how you're going to use that space most efficiently. And the site survey gives you that. Proper planning, perfect planning ensures perfect results. It's never perfect, but at least it's going to be better if you do effective pre-production, especially through your site survey.